Hello YouTube, I am back once again. As I did say that I was going to start a trilogy of videos for the next couple of days, so this is my first one. This is recorded on Christmas Eve in 2019, so just in case you're watching this in the future, and hopefully it should be uploaded on the same day. I aim to do that by the rest of the day. Now for this video, I wanted to do a specific tag video, and this one's actually really interesting. I saw Kai Decadent being tagged by this, and I thought to myself, because I haven't seen any other people do this tag in a long time, I thought I'd try to revive it just in case that some people haven't already seen this. So this is the Project Playlist Goth tag. The original creator of this tag was by House of Wyvren, with help from Cadaver Kelly. And basically what this tag is all about is just basically introducing people to other bands which they may not have known. So obviously I don't think I've seen many people react to like the main big ones, and so with this one I wanted to introduce people to a gothic band which I'm very familiar with, and I think many people would get into as well. So let's get started. So the band I've chosen to go with is a former Yugoslavian band called Luna. You might have heard me mention them in my 5 goth post-punk bands from Yugoslavia, and I wanted to pick this band because there's such an interesting vibe about them, such an interesting backstory about them as well, because they're basically the first gothic supergroup in Yugoslavia. The way how I found Luna was not just by finding stuff on the internet about goth bands or anything like that from Yugoslavia, but I was also introduced to them by people who lived in the Belgrade scene at that point, who are now in their 40s, who remember this band back when they first started back in 1981, and not just that, but even people of my generation who have heard this band through the grapevine, because initially this is a very cultish band. They're very underground, and there's not many people who do remember them or recognise them, and the fact they also weren't around for long just made it harder to buy a lot of their stuff as well. And it was one of those bands where they were basically saved from the rubble in many ways, because obviously you had to kind of dig deep and find what you're looking for through this. And I got into them through a friend of mine, and it was just a case of passing different goth bands. And I remember listening to this band the first time, thought this is amazing. I thought this is just pure gothic in its content, and the fact that it came from a Slavic country, which I'm very familiar with, really surprised me, because you have to remember back then this is when it was known as Yugoslavia, so this is a communist regime, and obviously as typical of any type of government you'll also have the artistic movement trying to rebel against it, and the fact that you also had a lot of these punk bands and goth bands existing, but it was so low key to an extent that they never got global recognition, only around Eastern Europe, especially in its own country as well. So the fact that when researching this, I didn't realise how much of a supergroup these guys actually were. A supergroup of Rostrada and another band which I can't remember, which I'm going to get into in a moment. But then after when they broke up, it was a bit of a reaction, because this band was very well known when they were touring around, and when you had all the hype, because you had 2 main big bands forming to make a gothic supergroup, which was very out of the ordinary. And then obviously then ended up going towards other big Yugoslavian bands as well. And what I really liked about Luna's sound as well is the fact it was very original. With most gothic bands you will have that type of dark, brooding vocal repertoire, but the fact that you also had this nice balance of nice harmonics from the female backing vocalist, and just the way how the guitar sounds. I mean, the first time ever listening to their album, I was just amazed and taken back by the level of ambience and discomfort you hear in the song Amazon, just purely through their guitar. And it had that nice balance of eeriness and traditional post-punk, and that's what I really found to love about this band. So let's talk about the members. Okay, Luna is formed of Slobodan Tishma, who is the vocalist, Zoran Bulatovic on guitar and backing vocals, Ivan Ferse on drums, Jasmina Metrucic on keyboards, and Marinko Vuknamovic on bass. So just a little bit of history about Luna. Luna was formed in Novi Sad, Serbia, obviously now known as former Yugoslavia, in 1981 to 84. The band formed after the breakup of Lustrada. With Lustrada, they were around from 1979 up to 1984, and obviously when they broke up at that point, Luna was formed, and when Luna broke up, Lustrada came back for I'm going to say another 3 years or so. So the band members that came out of Strada to form Lupa was vocalist Slobodan Tishma and the drummer Ivan Ferce. So basically, after when Strada broke up in 1981, after the bassist and guitarist left, the band was joined by Peking Duck's bassist Zoran. Zoran was actually from another post-punk band, which is called Pekinska Patka, which means Peking Duck. So after when he joined the band, they decided to go on a 3-day mini tour. So this is going through Novi Sad, Pančevo and Belgrade before deciding to form a new band. Luna's name was taken from the Bernardo Bellucci 1979 movie La Luna. Shortly after Marinko left the band 3 days before their first public appearance to form his pop group Primavera, he was replaced by keyboard player, synth player and backing vocalist Jasmina. During 1982, after playing a lot more regular shows and festivals, critics were very responsive. Peter Lukovic, in his 1982 edition of the Druga magazine, stated, and now you have to remember this, goth wasn't necessarily a big thing around in Yugoslavia. In fact, it was very much not heard upon. In fact, I don't even think it was even called that at that point. But the fact to have this type of dark, rebellious music come out is very impressive, coming from what was in the competition of Yugoslavian chart music then. But what was said in the interview was, Luna is today probably the most mature Novi Sad band from the generation. Their music is a strange symbolism of avant-garde influence in alternative music scene, and a luster of pop philosophy backed with a steady rhythm of striking vocals. There's also another brief interview which you can find on Wikipedia, which mentions that Luna is the best band we have. Next year either belongs to them or nobody else. So that goes to show how big that they were as a supergroup. The fact that they were already known through both their other bands and went to form this new creation. So the band recorded their first demo featuring the song Odleko Luna, the Mirror of Luna, which became a local hit and often was broadcasted around the local radio station. Shortly after, the band was set to tour in Croatia and Slovenia, as well as Serbia. Having returned from tour, the band went into the studio to record their only album, Nestvarne Stvari, Unreal Things, in Aquarius Studios in Belgrade. The album was finished in September 1983, and at the time, due to a quarrel between Buglatovic and Tishma, the latter was expelled from the band. Now you have to remember, Luna was only around for about 3 years, from 1981 to 1984, so the fact that they got the global recognition, they got such positive reviews from critics, and still managed to make an album before ended up splitting again, I find to be really impressive for such a small time frame. Obviously what happened afterwards was Slobodan Tishma went to reform Strada again, along with Jasmina, who decided to tag along as well. Buglati went to go and serve the Yugoslavian People Army, and Feta, the drummer, ended up drumming for Katarina II, which ended up becoming Ekaterina Velika. Although Luna would reunite a couple of times back in 1992, but it was shortly because Budalovic ended up moving to New York. And then again in 2004 and 2017 when Luna would reunite for the Exit festivals. As far as albums go, Luna only ever released one album, which was their 1983 album, Nestvarne Stvari. This is a very interesting album, by the way, because the album was released in the spring of 1984, but due to the band's abandonment and the fact there would be no album promotion, there was only ever 920 copies released. And that is very impressive, the fact that it's such a rare gem to find that stuff nowadays. So if you ever come across it on Discogs or anything like that, I truly recommend that. You do have the full album on YouTube, which I will put a link below if you are curious to have a listen to the full album. With the album, you had the original cover, which is this one, but then they did a re-release issue, which ended up being this one. So to me, that's telling me that they must have made more copies prior to the information which I have, which is very good in a way. I mean, obviously it's fantastic if you're into underground music. But now let's go and move on to the album itself. But what I generally like about this album is the fact that not only is there one release, which makes it even more important as a collection, but the fact that how much impact and much dark and sardonic tones are in this album. If you were to listen to the beginning tracks, you'll find that with this whole album, it's such a dark concept. You start off with very much a post-punk type of feel, and then the more you listen to it, the more it has this unequal balance of dark and moodiness with a lot of melancholic overtones, along with these nice ethereal ballads as well that you'll find. But then you also have these very dark, almost doomish repertoires, which you can hear later on in bands like Blockout. These very slow-tempoed, very brooding, almost tribal-esque feelings. It's set in a stage where you just feel so uncomfortable, but so curious at the same time to listen to this album. After listening to this album for the first time, I felt like I was walking down a very dark path in the open fields, and just that overall sense of fear and paranoia as to what's going to come out, what's going to jump at me. And it had that adrenaline as well. It was very chaotic as an album, especially on their last song as well. I mean, I just love the production of it as well. As much as I love the demo tapes of songs like Vila, but you also find with this album there were some fantastic tunes on, all very similar in their own way. And as I said, I'm going to drop the link down below to see what you think of it. So I'm going to pick about 5 songs that I would recommend off this album, which is a bit hard, bear in mind there's only 10 songs on this album, so I'm basically going to be going through half of the album. I'm going to put a little segment of each song just so you can see the difference of styles and the nice balance of emotion we hear throughout this album. And the ones I'm going to choose are Vila, which means fairy, Nestvarne Stvari, unusual things, Ogleda Luna, the mirror of Luna, Blada no prozor, Blada at the widow, and the nice ballad Okian. And that was the Project Goth playlist tag, and I hope that you really enjoyed this, and if you really liked this video then be sure to check out Luna, and if you enjoy what you hear from the rest of the album then please let me know. As far as tags go, even though I wasn't tagged myself, but I thought I'll try to get this ball rolling if it's died a little bit, so I'm probably going to tag Gothcast, Cemetery Confessions, and Snubby Loafer, just at the top of my head. So thank you very much everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you tomorrow. See ya!